One final thing on that, while there were some players, who criticized him, you personally, there are no hard feelings against Belichick or, any bad blood from when you were a Patriot?
Well, you know what? I think part of it is I respect Bill so much because he was one of the only, and I can't remember it. I really don't know if there's too many other places, dude, that you can go in regardless of where you come from and have the same opportunity as someone else. So I respect Bill so much for that. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just even if he didn't give me the opportunity, I respect him for that. But then he gave me the opportunity. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know if I would have been given that same opportunity somewhere else. Like I just said, I went a full season on the Ravens practice squad, and I was dominating. Like there was not many times where I said to myself, man, I had a bad day. You know what I mean? Like there was many times where I'm like, man, I'm out here killing them. You know what I'm saying? So for Bill to give me that opportunity, I had so much respect and love and admiration for him for that. But at the same time, I also believe that if I had, that same type of opportunity on another team, my career would have turned different. You know what I mean? I think that in a lot of ways, because of the connections that the Patriots have and the how it's a stepping stone for a lot of GMs, a lot of coaches, that if somebody goes to the organization and they get a bad rep, that's going to reverberate through the league. And I even had the same conversation when it happened with Danny Amendola. And he was like, dude, I came late when I was with the Cowboys and no one even said anything to me. Like, I was just like, I was still playing that week. Like, you know what I mean? And for me, it was so crazy. I'm like, it to me, it created a distraction that didn't even need to happen. So it was like, it was twofold. Like, I don't know. It was one of them situations where, and then there was so much after that happened that I don't even really talk about. And it will eventually go in my book. But there were so many different things that Bill tried to do to me, particularly to me, in order to not just get a rise out of me, but to kind of be like, this is what I do to everybody. You know what I mean? Like there was a situation where I was very close with the nutritionist, and he's still the nutritionist now. So, and I'm gonna write this in my book. I don't care. It's all out in the open. But one of the things he said to me, and see, he said he was meeting with Bill, him and the strength coach, and Bill said to them, if we can make if how miserable we can make this thing for Jonas is how great the team will be. How miserable we can make this thing for Jonas is how great the team will be. So he was looking at it like, if I push Jonas, that's gonna push Garrett, that's gonna push Ridley, that's gonna push Shane, that's gonna push our team. Like, he's seen me as one of the leaders that guys really gravitated towards. And he was like, if we can make this thing tough on Jonas and really get him to focus, and that's his way of thinking of it, we're gonna have a great chance to win a championship. So it was little things, dude. I'd be at a Clippers game. You remember I had the whole Justin Bieber situation, and Belichick assistant Bear to reach out to me like, could you kind of take that down? We don't want to have anything. We just lost to the Packers. We don't want to say that we're gonna win the Super Bowl. And I'm like, all I posted was that Chris Paul picked us to win the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So it was that dynamic that like you kind of felt like, man, like he's all over you. You know what I'm saying? And I think that environment and in that approach is kind of what pushed him out the door in a way. You know what I mean? Because this generation, you went farther and farther away from my generation, where I was willing to take it on the chin, take it on the chin, take it on the head. Some of these other guys, they either folded or they said, I'm not doing it. You know what I'm saying? And not to mention, veteran players saw how he treated me. I know I have a lot of great relationships. All the teams I have been on. You know what I mean? I have a lot of great relationships around the league. And one of those was when I was going out to I went out and did a visit with the Lions at the time. And Golden Tate was on the team, and it was a bunch of Notre Dame guys on the team. And I went to the training room to do my physical. And I sat there for like 30 minutes and talked to Matthew Stafford. And we just had a great conversation, and me, him, and Golden. And then he was like, man, that's just so crazy how, they did you there, whatever, whatever. And then when it came time later for Stafford to pick a team, he said anywhere but New England. And I'm not saying I was the main reason, of course, but that definitely reverberated around the league in terms of how people felt that he treated players. It was not a player friendly environment. Guys would come here and retire right away. Reggie Wayne, Eric Decker, you know what I mean? Like those guys would come in and be like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like I had one situation where Reggie Wayne was my locker partner. He was right next to me. And we were watching, like I was dominating practice and film. And he was like, dude, you killed it today. Later on, we went into the film room and they just literally chewed up everything that I did. And he was like, he whispered to me in the side. He was like, dude, they're treating you like Trent Richardson. And we had a long laugh about it, but it was like that environment that they had. And I wasn't one of the guys that, because I had been in so many different environments with like tough nosed coaches that like I knew how to deflect that stuff. You know what I mean? Like when I saw Bill, I'm like, what's up, coach? How's it going? Like fist pump, you know what I mean? He'd walk through the locker room, other guys would turn and I'd be like, hey, coach, how's it going? Like I was great about, you know what I mean, deflecting that type of stuff and not really letting it get to me. And so, I was always big on just keeping my own joy. It was even times where Belichick would the off season had come around. He was like, his assistant was like, give me everything that you're doing in the off season. Like I want to know. So I had all these different events I was doing and charities and giving back. I was going to Shriners Hospital. I was doing like really cool things, giving like had the key to my city back home, and I was doing the check presentation and all this great stuff. You know what I mean? And doing all this great stuff for doing all these great things for myself, you know what I mean? And for because leading up to this, my whole thing was always about unite and inspire people. Like I wanted to use my platform as an athlete really to give back, you know what I mean? And give people that inspiration that they need because that's who I've always been, you know what I mean? As a servant leader. So I had all these different things and Bill's assistant was like, Bill doesn't want you doing all this stuff. He thinks that, even Tom's not doing all this stuff in the off season. And I'm just like, I just burst on the scene. I got this platform now, and I'm utilizing this thing to the very end. And I'm not gonna let nobody stop me from doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would I stop myself from giving myself more opportunities? You know what I mean? And he kept, the distraction piece. It was a distraction to do this, do that. And so that's another reason why I think that the Apple TV series had to be critical of Bill because, for example, when he did the letter to Trump, that was a huge distraction. You know what I mean? Like anybody else would have done anything like that. He would have been like, don't get on InstaFace and all this stuff. And you know what I mean? So I just think that, yeah, it was a tough situation, but at the same time, it was an environment that I was used to. You know what I mean? And I knew how to operate myself in. So, nothing ever got to me too much, but it definitely opened my eyes up and, made me more resilient as a person for sure.
Well, and you know what, Jonas, we talked earlier about how you're going to start your own podcast soon. I think you're going to kill it in the podcasting game because you're not afraid to talk about stuff that some people are afraid to talk about. Some former Patriots guys I've talked to, I say, was it tough playing with Bill? And they're like, no comment. And you have to ask them 7 times before they crack it all. I mean, I asked once and you went all in. So I